Let's jump right into it. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dissect exactly why startups and small businesses absolutely collapse in their first year. But hey, more importantly, we're going to hand you an inspiring, data-backed survival playbook to prevent that from happening. So if you want to build a business that actually lasts, you are in exactly the right place. Okay, so let's anchor ourselves to a really staggering statistical reality from the latest IDEA Proof and Bureau's labor statistics data. 90% of startups ultimately fail within 10 years. And honestly, a brutal 20% don't even survive their first 12 months. Those aren't just numbers on a page. Those represent lost life savings, shattered dreams, and literally thousands of hours of wasted energy. But the good news? That doesn't have to be your reality. To figure out how to beat these odds, here is our game plan for today. First, we'll visit the startup graveyard. Then we'll unpack the validation trap, dive into scaling and cash flow, confront the silent killer known as burnout, and finally, we'll give you the survival playbook. All right, let's move right into Section 1, the startup graveyard. We are going to conduct a $65 billion autopsy on the tens of thousands of businesses that incinerated their capital between 2024 and 2026. You know, you hear it all the time from universities, journals, and global think tanks warning us about these really common failure points. We constantly hear about bad locations, poor marketing, or tough competition. But the truth is, to truly protect your venture, we have to look way past these obvious surface-level symptoms to find the real killers lurking underneath. The traditional narrative, drawn from some really comprehensive CB insights and idea-proof data, shows a breakdown of 17 distinct death patterns. Historically, 42% of startups died simply because there was absolutely no market need for what they built. Another 29% died from running out of cash, and 23% completely collapsed because they just had the wrong team in place. But hold on, that historical data really requires a deeper look, and that brings us to Section 2, the validation trap, and the immense danger of building before verifying. This is where it gets super interesting. Updated post-mortem data completely reframes the whole issue. See, 70% of failed companies reported that running out of capital was their ultimate demise. But running out of cash? That's merely the symptom of the actual disease. The root cause, accounting for a massive 43% of these failures, is poor product-market fit. The money ran out because they were pouring cash into chasing demand that just was not there.
So the crucial takeaway here is this: most ideas aren't actually dead on arrival. They're just incomplete. Founders routinely burn 18 to 24 months of their personal savings and their investors' cash building out a product because they skip the single weekend it takes to properly validate their customer base. They basically build a brilliant solution for a problem nobody is actually willing to pay to solve.
Okay, but what happens when you actually do find that market fit and start to grow? Let's move on to Section 3, scaling and cash flow, and explore the hidden danger of growth. There is this wildly eye-opening story from a real founder on Reddit who learned this the hard way. In year 1, they made a modest 85 grand in revenue with 15 grand in profit. Year 2, boom, they hit 450,000 in revenue and 90,000 in profit. Things were looking incredible. But then, completely obsessed with scaling, this founder reinvested everything into rapid hiring and tons of new product lines. By year 3, they hit an amazing $1.1 million in revenue, but their profits completely tanked to just $50,000. They were paying suppliers late, losing sleep, and essentially teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, despite being a quote-unquote seven-figure business. A fellow entrepreneur completely hit the nail on the head here, stating, "More businesses die from indigestion than they do from starvation." The real enemy for a growing business usually isn't a lack of opportunity. It's overexpansion. Chasing every single trend, saying yes to bad margin deals, and scaling before your internal systems are actually ready is a fatal error. You've got to build for durability, not just speed. And financial experts at Cashflow Frog completely back this up. Relying on overly hopeful sales projections, letting clients pay late, and chronically underestimating those sneaky hidden expenses will drain your accounts fast. But the absolute biggest sin? Neglecting to build a 3 to 6 month cash cushion. Without that reserve, a minor seasonal setback instantly morphs into a catastrophic financial crisis. Now let's pivot away from the balance sheet for a minute. Let's look at Section 4, the silent killer, burnout. Because this isn't just personal, it is a systemic epidemic. Brace yourself for this one. A staggering 87% of founders report experiencing anxiety, depression, or severe burnout. 87%.
This proves that burnout is a massive, systemic epidemic in the entrepreneurial world. It is definitely not just an isolated personal weakness.
And why is it so lethal? Well, one founder from the lonely entrepreneur community put it perfectly. When I burned out, I didn't just lose energy. I lost the ability to make decisions. Because the founder essentially is the business in those critical early days, falling into the obsession trap where you're generating nonstop activity without actually generating money ultimately paralyzes the entire operation.
We seriously need to reframe this. Generic advice like, just take a vacation, completely fails because it ignores the root cause. Burnout is not a calendar issue, it is a structural failure of your business's architecture. Think about it. If you take a 2-week break, you just return to the exact same broken system that burned you out in the first place. You have to build real structural support.
So knowing all these traps are out there, how do we actively prevent these collapses? Let's move to Section 5, the Survival Playbook, and learn how to actually beat the odds. Let's start with the financials. According to IdeaProof, maintaining a strict 18-month cash runway gives you a 71% chance of successfully raising your next round of funding. If you dip below 9 months, that drops to 24%. Runway is not just a metric, it's a deadline. Pair this with rolling financial forecasts and proactive scenario planning. That ensures that when a market downturn hits, and it will, you react with a pre-planned strategy instead of blind panic. Plus, setting up rock-solid legal and operational systems right from the start is non-negotiable. As the experts at Sade and Little point out, you've got to be strategic. Choose the right entity for tax purposes, align with your co-founders on equity before the money rolls in, lock down your IP, and use robust contracts. Doing this with professional advice from day one prevents absolute chaos when your company finally attempts to scale.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Look at your daily operations right now and ask yourself, are you truly validating your ideas, protecting your cash flow, and building a durable, resilient business? Or are you just sprinting as fast as you can toward the startup graveyard, building a product nobody actually needs? Take a breath, build the right systems, and you won't just survive your first year, you'll thrive for decades. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.